Well, we are launching a brand new series today titled FRANTIC, and that word frantic literally means like extreme emotion, uncontrolled thoughts, worry, anxiety. It's that feeling when you're right at the edge of a cliff, and if you breathe wrong, you're up over the edge, or if the wind just blows ever so slightly, right, you're just over the edge. It's that feeling of being frantic. And I think about life, that there's been all of these, frantic moments, frantic seasons. Maybe you've experienced some of these. It's that frantic feeling when, your career path, you start looking ahead and you're not sure where your career is going. It's that moment where all of a sudden there's this dream swirling around and you're like, I got to quit my job to pursue my dream, but what if that doesn't work out? It's that day where all of a sudden you get called in and you get fired and now you don't have a job. It's that frantic feeling season attached to marriage. Maybe you're just days, months away from being married and you have that feeling of excitement, but yet, oh no, we're going to, till death do us part. Or maybe you've been married a short period of time and all that honeymoon season is over and now reality of marriage is kicking in. Or maybe you're thinking to yourself, I hope he proposes one day. You're just waiting and waiting and waiting, going, maybe I'll never get married. Or maybe your marriage just came to an end and now you're facing, being alone. Maybe it's that frantic season connected to a child. You just had your first child, or maybe your fifth child. Maybe you lost a child. Maybe you're longing for a child. Maybe you're seeing your kids grow, and all of a sudden you're facing a kindergarten graduation, or a high school graduation, or a college graduation, and time is just clicking by. Or maybe you have adult kids, and all of a sudden one of your adult kids is making those really stupid adult decisions. Maybe that frantic feeling season is connected to a relationship, a long relationship that now is severed, a best friend that now the relationship is maybe forever broken. Maybe it's a relationship with a parent and you're just not sure how you're going to figure it out. Maybe this frantic season is connected to health concerns. Maybe you just feel something off within you, or maybe you're waiting for the medical report. Maybe you already got the report and you're just not sure what is next. Maybe it's connected to financial stress. Maybe your financial stress is connected to a bunch of unwise financial decisions, but you have dug yourself a hole and you have no idea how you're going to get yourself out of it. You have no idea how you're going to tell your spouse the hole that you've dug because you've been hiding it. And then all of a sudden, you feel yourself at the edge of a cliff. Or maybe your financial stress is just connected to life. That gets connected to grief. And all grief is loss, not just loss of a loved one. You see, this entire list is filled with types of loss. Maybe, just maybe, you find yourself in a frantic moment or a frantic season. There's two questions I just want to surface. The first one is for the entire series. The other one is more specifically tied to where we're going today. The first question is, what if God allows frantic moments to help you learn how to let go and trust Him? What if God just allows whatever frantic moment you're facing right now, no matter if it's a quick moment or a long season? What if? But that question sets up this question again, which sets up where we're going today. What if God leads you to a dead end in order to teach you how to let go and trust? Because sometimes frantic feelings, frantic emotions, frantic thoughts are because we find ourselves in a dead end. We look around us and we just don't know where we are and how we got to where we are and how to get out of where we are, and we find ourselves just going, I just don't know how I'm going to get through this, over this, under this, around. I just don't know how. And those frantic feelings, those frantic thoughts can so easily consume us. In this entire series, we're going to be in the book of Exodus, specifically starting in Exodus chapter 13. And it's this moment where God has tapped Moses, this reluctant leader, on the shoulder to lead his people out of Egypt. And where we're going to step in is literally the moment where Moses is leading God's people out of Egypt. And this is what we're told. When Pharaoh, the Egyptian leader, let the people go. I mean, just sit in that moment. For hundreds of years, God's people, they would be formed into a nation called the Israelites, but they were this loosely connected group of tribes. They had been in captivity for hundreds of years. Every single person that was walking into freedom on this day had only known slavery, had only known captivity. In fact, every person, their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, their great-great-grandparents had been born into slavery, been born into captivity. And all of a sudden, in this moment, Pharaoh says, go. And now they're experiencing freedom for the very first time. And God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was the shorter way. It was shorter. I mean, shorter is almost always better. But all of a sudden, God's like, no, I don't want you to go through that way. I have a different way for you to go. For God said, if they, the Israelites, this loosely connected group of tribes, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. Now, the gravity of that thought, I mean, we just have to pause there. Why do you have to pause there? Well, if you've ever read this story before, maybe you've read the story a lot, maybe you've never read the story, maybe you've heard the story, years ago. But what comes next, and we'll get to the next, but what comes next is actually God's going to lead the Israelites right to the Egyptian army. But yet God says if they face war, which begs the question, we got to ask the question, if God was going to lead them to face the Egyptian army, why didn't God want them to face the Philistine army? Right? Obviously, God's like, hey, if they face the Philistines, if they go to war, they will want to go back to captivity. They will beg me to send them back to die as slaves. But yet God was still going to lead them. You'll see this is where we're going to. God's going to lead them to face the Egyptian army. So we have to ask this question. There's several important thoughts that get connected that I think will start to help answer that question. The first part is this. The Philistines were not on what I call God's hit list. If you go back to Genesis chapter 15, you just need to read through all of it. God is forming a covenant. And that word covenant is such a powerful word to understand the entire storyline of the Bible. Covenant starts in Genesis and goes all the way to the end. In fact, when Jesus says, hey, this is the blood of the new covenant. I mean, the importance of covenant. And so we go to this moment in Genesis 15 where God is forming a covenant with Abraham. And covenant means what God's going to bring to the relationship and what God is asking from Abraham to bring to the relationship. What God is bringing to the relationship with you and me, and what God is asking us to bring to the relationship with him. That's covenant. And in Genesis 15, all of a sudden, as God is forming this covenant with Abraham, all of a sudden we get to a list of groups of people that God's judgment was going to be on. And here's the thing, the Philistines weren't part of that list. Now, God was going to have to deal with the Philistines much, much later, but not yet. Which leads to another insight that's really important. That God he had to show something to Pharaoh in Egypt. And you're going to see that in the story today. That God's going to show something really important to the Egyptians, specifically Pharaoh. Which leads to something else that God was intentionally doing. God was looking at Well, this very loosely connected group of tribes that had been in captivity for hundreds of years, and he was going to build them into a nation called Israel, that one day was going to have a king. And from that lineage was going to come Jesus, the eternal king. So let's unpause the story. And God just says, hey, if they face war, they might change their minds. God, again, he's leading at multiple levels right now with the Egyptians and with the Israelites. So, we're told, God led the people around by the desert road towards the Red Sea. And the Israelites went up out of Egypt ready for battle. Now, I spent, so many hours trying to map out the exact Exodus route. What all scholars know is where they started when Pharaoh said, go, leave, and where all scholars and archaeologists agree on is where the promised land was. The mystery comes in the middle part. How did they go from Egypt to the promised land? That's where the mystery is. There's a lot of different theories, a lot of different scholars that have different insights. But one of the things that makes it really difficult is that when we read phrases like Red Sea, we're expecting it to be an exact location. Open up Google Maps, type in Red Sea, find the Red Sea. But thousands of years ago, these titles were more, descriptions. In fact, Red Sea literally means the Sea of Reeds. And when they wrote that they were ready for battle, that ancient Hebrew phrase could have been interpreted either armed or in a military formation. Now, they couldn't have been armed. They were slaves, and Pharaoh just said, go. They had no time to make swords and bows and arrows and chariots, right? They literally were just freed. And so the image here is that they were organized in a military-esque formation. Remember, God was forming these loosely connected tribes into a nation. Another way to frame this ready for battle is groups of 50, right? That would have been a battle formation. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night, in a pillar of fire to give them light so that they could travel by day or night. Think about this image that God was guiding them. Pillar of cloud, pillar of fire, day or night. God was visibly present. And that's so important. From the very beginning, as they went from slaves to being free, God was present to say, hey, I get that this whole new world that you're discovering is going to leave you feeling frantic. But no, I'm leading you. Just look up. I'm leading you. I got you. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. Then the Lord said to Moses, hey, tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea, directly opposite of Baal-zephon. And again, we have these titles that could be literal cities. Again, type in Google Maps and find them. But scholars, we're not really sure where they are. And we also know that these were also descriptive phrases. For instance, that ancient phrase, Pi-hahiroth, however you pronounce it, right? It's translated as salt marshes. It's literally a description of an area of land. A Migdol literally is a description of a watchtower. And what we know is Egypt built these migdals all around the major roads. Why? Because they had watchtowers looking for, foreign armies that were coming to invade their land. What we know is Baal Zephron literally is translated Lord of the North. And it's this Canaanite phrase that gets taken from the people in Canaan, which eventually would be the promised land, that they kind of brought into their Egyptian language, which, oh, by the way, the Hebrew people took the word Migdal from the Egyptian language into their Hebrew language. And this is where some of that mystery is, because we're not sure, are these literal cities, or are they just descriptions of places? And as I went down the rabbit hole trying to figure out exactly where these places were or were not, all of a sudden I realized that's not even the point. You know what the point is? Not exactly where these places were. The point was when God says, hey, they are to turn back. Think about it. God leads them out. They're free people for the first time ever. They're free. They start walking. Again, the feelings had to be frantic. And all of a sudden, wherever they get to, God says, you got to retrace your steps. You got to return back from where you just walked from. Hey, about to face turn, just go back. Could you imagine being the Israelites? They followed God out of captivity, and all of a sudden God's like, I'm sorry. You got to turn around and go back. I know you're tired, but hey, you got to backtrack. Hey, I know it's going to be a little frustrating, but I didn't really want you to go there. So turn around. Just turn around. Turn around. It'll be okay. And then God starts to reveal something else that he's focused in on. Another part of his plan that's going to impact the Israelites. And God goes, Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion. And I'm sure the Israelites were like, yeah, God, not only will Pharaoh think that, we're all thinking that. God, because we are wandering around and we are confused. You led us here. Now you're telling us to turn around and go back. Yeah, we are. We're wandering around and confused. And then God goes, and hemmed in by the desert. Meaning, yep, you're at a dead end. Nowhere else to go. Trapped, stuck, not sure what to do next. And God says, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. It's interesting, this phrase, hardened Pharaoh's heart. Literally 10 times in this Pharaoh narrative storyline, it says that God hardened his heart. But also another 10 times it says that Pharaoh hardened his own heart. And other times it just said that Pharaoh's heart was hardened. And when you think about this, did God harden his heart? Yes. Did Pharaoh harden his own heart? Yes. Was Pharaoh's heart just hard, prideful, arrogant, power hungry? Yes. And that's the point. Pharaoh was all about his power, his pride, his position, him. And he wanted his slaves back. But God, again, had a different plan. God says, but I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all of his army. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. Hey, Israelites. Hey, I'm doing something through you. I freed you. I have a great plan for you. But hey, Israelites, it's not all about you. I'm also going to make myself known to the Egyptians. I'm also going to make myself known to Pharaoh. He's going to know, they are going to know that I am God. Hey, Israel, it's not all about you. Think about this. So many times when we find ourselves wandering, when we find ourselves at a dead end, we just think it's all about us. Hey, God, what about me? 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 And guess what? God sometimes in those dead end wandering spots says, hey, it's not all about you. I am working in you and through you, but I also am working in and through other people. I watched this with my dad in his entire cancer journey because my dad understood that God was doing something in him and through him but also God was doing something in him and through him to impact other people. And this is one of those moments where God's like, hey, Israel, I'm taking care of you. I'm with you. I'm guiding you. But I also need to let Egypt know something. And what we're told in the text is that Pharaoh gathers together 600 of his best chariots, plus other chariots, plus some of his best fighting men. And he starts out to get his slaves back. We're told as Pharaoh approached the Israelites, they looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. Could you imagine the sight? The dust from the chariots, the dust from the soldiers. And the Israelites looked up and they saw them. But here's the thing. All they had to do was look a little higher. Because who was leading them? By pillar of cloud and pillar of fire? Who? God. All they had to do was lift their eyes a little bit higher and they would say, oh yeah, God's with us. But they didn't do that. They kept focused on Pharaoh's army. And we're told that they were terrified and cried out to God. They said to Moses, was it because there was no graves in Egypt that you brought us into the desert to die? Can you sense, can you hear, can you feel the intensity of their sarcasm? Like, so really, we could have just died in Egypt, but you wanted us to die all out here? Why did you lead us out here? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? What did they immediately do? They complained and blamed. Complained and blamed. And this is just raw humanity, isn't it? I know as I've hit frantic seasons of life, I mean, it's just so easy to default to this, isn't it? As I've hit seasons of life where I find myself in a dead end going, God, how are you going to get me out of this spot? It's so easy to complain and blame. And this is what the Israelites started to do. They went on, they said, didn't we say to you in Egypt, hey, remember when we were actually in Egypt? Leave us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Here's what they were saying. Hey, God, my plan is better than your plan. Hey, God, my way is better than your way. Hey, God, we should have held on to control and done it our way. And remember, God was still leading them by pillar of cloud and pillar of fire. God was still visibly present, and they were still saying, hey, God, we should have just listened to ourselves. We should have just held on for control. Moses answered the people with courage. He says, don't be afraid. Stand firm. You will see. You can hear him say, come on, trust me. You will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today you'll never see again. Why? Because the Lord will fight for you, and you need only to be still. That ancient Hebrew word still literally means to be silent, to be at peace. All of those frantic feelings inside of you, those uncontrolled thoughts, those extreme emotions, just be silent. Just be still. And then God gives Moses instructions of what he's asking Moses to do. And then the angel of God, who had been traveling in front of Israel's army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them, coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel. And throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to one side and light to the other side. So neither went near the other all night long. And then Moses did what God had just instructed him to do. He stretched out his hand over the sea, And all night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a wall of water on their right and a wall of water on their left. And then all of a sudden, as they made their way through the dry ground, Pharaoh instructs his army to pursue them. The chariot starts moving through that parted sea. And God threw their army into confusion. And all of a sudden, God jammed the chariot wheels. And then the armies of Pharaoh, the Egyptians, screamed out, "Let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." And then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch your hand back out over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and their horsemen." And that day, the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the mighty hand of the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared, were in awe of the Lord. And they put their trust in him and in Moses, their servant. You see, I think about this story when it comes to these frantic moments that we feel like we're at a dead end. And God calls us to walk, to keep moving. Hey, Israelites, walk out of captivity. Hey, Israelites, continue to walk. Even when you don't know where I'm leading you, even though you don't know where you're going, just continue to walk. Hey, when you're at a dead end, hey, continue to walk. When I tell you to turn back around, to retrace your steps, continue to walk. You see, letting go and trusting God means that you continue to move on your faith journey. When you see God move and when you're not sure how he's moving and when it doesn't make sense how he's moving and why he's doing what he's doing, God just gotta keep moving with me. And I tell you, even in the complaining and blaming, the Israelites still did what God had asked them to do. They continue to walk. And you see, in frantic moments, you have to realize that God is okay with you wandering. In fact, the Israelites were going to wander for a very long time. But there's something that happens within us when we let go and trust God in the wandering seasons. The wandering seasons. Again, those seasons where it doesn't make sense. The wandering seasons where we face a dead end. The wandering seasons where we're just not sure what God is going to do next. The wandering seasons when we can see the pillar of cloud, but we also see the armies. The wandering seasons when we're just like, okay, God, well, I just don't, none of this makes sense. And you know what God is telling us to do? Let go and trust and keep walking. Follow him. He's leading. In frantic seasons, God will just tell us to wait. Just to wait. Hey, I got you. I mean, I think about when the Israelites heard that, when they heard them say, just be still. I mean, again, that wasn't a physical movement, be still. That was an inner silence, an inner peace, be still. Hey, when your emotions are frantic, take a deep breath. Experience God's peace. Wait for him, because God's timing is always perfect. And remember, for the Israelites, God wanted to do something in them, and God wanted to do something for the Egyptians, to show the Egyptians who he was. And just maybe what God is doing right now in your waiting season is he wants to use you and your story to impact someone else. Maybe God, in your dead end season that you're experiencing, God wants to do something in you and through you and in someone else whose story is connected with you. Maybe in your waiting season, what you just need to realize is that, okay, God, I'm going to be still. I'm going to be silent. I'm going to be at peace because, God, I trust what you're doing in me and for me. You might also be wanting to do in and through someone else. And keep walking, trusting that God is going to lead you where he wants you. And then you got to watch God do what only God can do. Pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night. God was like, hey, I'm with you. I'm for you. I got you. Hey, Moses, all you have to do is stretch out a hand. I got you. Hey, Israelites, pack up your stuff. Yep, you're hemmed in. Yep, you're at a dead end. Yep, sea on one side, Egyptian army on the other side. I got you. Just watch what I'm going to do. Hey, Egyptians, hey, this barrier, this obstacle, this body of water, I got you. Not only am I going to part it, the ground is going to be dry. And oh, by the way, when they come after you, I got that solved too. Watch me do. God, over and over again, is saying, hey, just watch me. I got you. Watch me, I'll provide for you. Watch me, I'm going to show up and show off. And whatever you do, keep walking. Just keep walking. Walk through on dry ground and worship. Worship. I think about that last verse we read. They were in fear. They were in awe of God, and they trusted. Do you realize that trust is worship? It's worship. And they trusted God. They were in awe of God. Yeah, did they complain? Yes. Did they blame? Yes. Were they sarcastic? Yes, send us back to Egypt. We'd rather die there. Yeah. Did they press up against Moses saying, really, this is ridiculous? Did they question God when all of a sudden God leads them to a dead end and tells them to backtrack? Sure, all of that is real. But yet they kept moving. And then all of a sudden, they saw what God was up to. They experienced it. And they paused. And in fear and awe and reverence and trust, they worshiped God. What frantic season are you in right now? What frantic moment are you facing? My encouragement for you is this. Keep walking. Keep walking. And know that God is doing something in you. And this is so important, God just might be taking your story and wanting to leverage it to impact someone else as well. Ultimately, to give him the glory, to give him the praise, to glorify him. Walk. Let go. Trust. Walk. Let go. Trust. Let's pray. Lord, I just pray. You know the frantic moments, seasons that every single person in. And Lord, I just pray if they're in a dead end, if they're backtracking right now, retracing their steps, if you have them wandering, if you have them waiting, whatever season they're in, Lord, I just pray that they know that you are present with them. Lord, I just pray that they will let go and place their trust in you, a God who will never let us down, a God who's always out in front of us, a God who's present, graceful, loving, purposeful, and who's guiding us, leading us every step along the way. In your name I pray. Amen.